best. Losers always whine about their best. Winners go home and fuck the prom queen.
Oh, that's what we need here. We need a winner. This is Tim's New York Giants Straight Talk, powered by Online Big Blue LLC. Want to talk about Evan Neal? Want to talk about the conundrum that is Evan Neal and the New York Football Giants? Want to talk about why not start him? And I think it's one of those questions. Listen, Evan Neal is not a sympathetic figure. Let's be honest about that. He didn't endear himself to the fans in reference to his flippin' burger comments, which I understand. I find it interesting, though, that Kayvon Thibodeau can go after the fans after a monicum success, and the fans are like, well, that's just him speaking honest. What Evan Neal said in reference to the burger comment probably was not the best forum to say it in, but he was not 100% wrong. He was 100% wrong to disparage anyone that works in the fast food industry. That's 100%. But what he did say in that entire thing, and people forget, was he said, I could have 45 snaps where I do everything correct. I block my man. I open up the hole in the running game. And then I could have 2 snaps or 3 snaps when I give up a sack, and people are singularly focused on those 2 or 3 snaps. Now, listen, he has not played well over his time here with the Giants. I mean, that's a given. But Andrew Thomas didn't play well either, especially that first year and going into parts of his second year. And I find it interesting that you give all the leeway in the world to number 8. You give him 6 years, maybe even 7, and you're already ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater with Evan Neal. Evan Neal was never, or Evan Neal wasn't this guy that was just some bum off the street. Evan Neal was a top 7 pick. He had a good college career. But there just seems to be some mitigating factors that we kind of have this rolling downhill for Evan. And I don't know if it's just a complete disdain by Joe Shane, that in fact that Evan Neal's making him look bad, because you know what they said before? Who could screw up 5 and 7? That's why I'm a genius. So maybe he just has a complete disdain for the man. Maybe the new offensive line coach just can't work with him. Maybe it's Brian Dable doesn't want to take that risk of putting him in the left tackle position. But teams are built for the long haul. We're not just built for a season. We're not built for a game. We're not built for a moment. You're supposed to be building a team. You're supposed to be building a franchise. You're supposed to be building a dynasty. And you can't do that if you don't hit on your first round picks and see exactly what they have. I always go back to, and I was thinking about this yesterday, because a lot of people don't even talk about this, and I don't know why they don't. Back in January, when Evan Neal had ankle surgery, which was on January 2nd, which kept him out of all our training camp, and return, he returned just before the start of the season. But people forget that the Giants misdiagnosed that injury. And Evan Neal, who wouldn't really elaborate on the exact issue that he had fixed, did speak out about the Giants and how Giants management misdiagnosed the issue before he decided he needed to head to the operating table. He came out and said, I have no ill will whatsoever. The Giants training staff has done everything they can to help me get back healthy. I just can't help or misdiagnosis. I mean, things like that happen. It's nobody's fault. Well, it is interesting, like I said, that the Giants medical staff, once again, potentially the coaching staff, potentially whomever, they misdiagnosed the injury that Evan Neal had, which basically forced him to have surgery. Now, the Giants don't want to talk about it. The Giants don't talk about it at all. And I kind of find that weird. That nobody wants to talk about. Evan Neal talked about it. Evan Neal brought it up. And then he talked about how it took him 8+ months following surgery. He says, everyone's different. I'm a large man. I put a lot of pressure and a lot of weight on my ankle. Everyone's body is different. There's nothing natural about a surgery. getting cut open, so your body's going to have a different response. So there's no cookie cutter model in the terms of when a player is going to come back and when he's going to be back. Well, evidently he's back. Evidently he's ready to play. He's come out and said, I'm ready to play. I'm ready. I'm ready to, to take the snaps, to take the opportunity. But could it be the fact that the Giants did misdiagnose the injury? That could be a factor, and see exactly where he's at. Brian Dable at one point in time, he said about Evan Neal, we're getting it back to I can't read today. We're just getting it back here out in the individuals. So he's got a long way to go in terms of being off for a while, and he'll go out there and start competing, which he did start competing. He's been in full pads. It's just, it seems like the coaching staff has this apprehension in reference to putting him in the game. Now, listen, if you take a look at statistically, it's not that great. Last season, in 309 pass blocking snaps, he did allow 20 pressures, which isn't terrible. And that was following his rookie season where he was ranked 86 out of 89 tackles. And he allowed 52 pressures and 534 snaps. So literally, if you break down to double his snaps, he would only allow 40 pressures and over 600 snaps, which isn't terrible. Is he that road paver that we thought he was going to be? I don't really think we've given him the opportunity to show that. Is he that pass blocker that we thought he was going to be? I really don't think we've given him fully the opportunity to show that. But listen, if you are going to do anything with this Giant team, if you are going to do anything to help them move forward, or if you are going to do anything to allow this team to be part of this organization, to show these guys are the building blocks, you got to let them play. You have to let them go out there. And the worst case scenario is this. Let's say you put him out there and he plays average, and you do not feel that he is part of the franchise. You can show other teams in the league that he is healthy, and you can trade him, or you can try to move on from him. So why not, with Andrew Thomas' season-ending foot injury, allow him to come out and show somewhat what he can do, and maybe someone gives you a 6th rounder, maybe someone gives you a 5th rounder, maybe someone sees something in some film in a limited action that will allow the Giants to move on from him and get something back in return. But it's just the fact that they have this trepidation in regards to even putting him out there that kind of just makes me wonder, is there something else going on here? Is there something else going on? And I kind of go back to the misdiagnosis. Listen, the Giants medical staff over the last 10 years has been horrid. It has been horrid to say the least. They have allowed players to play when they were injured, and they should have, and we've seen them turn into multitudes of games missed, looking at Andrew Thomas and the hamstring last year and then the foot injury this year. We're looking at other players that should never have been left in the game, like when they used to leave Daniel Jones in, when the games were when the games were no longer in doubt for the opponent, and they allowed Daniel Jones to get killed. We've seen them, we've seen injuries with even the smooth sounds of Kenny G's. People don't want to talk about it either, but Kenny G tried to play through injuries as well that second season. And I just kind of think, is there something else out there that Dable is not seeing, or that we're just not talking about? Because the fact is that you are basically, it's almost like they don't even want this guy on the field, which I don't understand. If Joshua Zuda is not an NFL talent, he's not an NFL player. He proved that once again on Sunday. It is another failed, and it's another swing and a miss by Joe Shane. And for you to roll him out there over the 7th overall pick kind of just makes me shake my head a little bit. Why? He's not good in reference to Joshua Zuda. He's not good. He's not a guy that can come in here and do what he needs to do. And you got a 6'7", 350-pound offensive lineman out of Auburn sitting there. And you're sitting there and going, okay, well, you know what? We're not gonna use this guy. Listen, if you go back to his scouting report, Everyone talks about him being the king-size tackle, the height and size that cannot be taught. Raw power, natural strength to overwhelm defenders and tight quarters. Sounds like he could play guard too. His versatility, played both left and right tackle at an elite level in college. Total dominator in the run game, the best run blocker in the nation. I love what they say. His awareness is above average for his limited experience. Sells trap plays, can turn to the seal. Fluid to get to and adjust to the second level. Foot speed and quickness are good, but not elite. We've talked about that ad nauseum. One of the issues I've always thought about Evan Neal was his foot speed. We talked about that when we drafted him. And the fact that he comes too high out of his stance and he doesn't use proper leverage when you watch him play. But his foot speed was always average, and we always said he was probably going to have issues with elite speed rushers. And that's something we've talked about. I think he's pretty quick coming out of his stance, but I think he comes up too high. We've talked about this before. I think he's a very athletic guy for his size. And everyone said coming out of the draft, I love this line, best on the left where he could become a dominant, even elite pro. And his weaknesses has always been need to work on his technique and pass protection, be using more consistent leverage, and continue to move his feet. We've talked about that. Brilliant in the running game, just needs to improve his hand techniques as a pass blocker. We've always said he's going to struggle as a pass blocker. Struggles to adjust if he's lost the first move and can be slow to reacting with a counter. We've talked about that before. When you watch him play, if a defensive end throws something at him and he doesn't counter, he's extremely slow to do that. And we talked about this before. He has an occasional problem lunging. And that's something you don't want to do, especially when you're in pass blocking. But everyone thought this guy, and listen, you know what? You are wrong about players before. Everyone's wrong about players. Everyone thinks that this guy, we can name hundreds of guys in the NFL drafts who just kind of flamed out and never became anything, who looked like they were going to be spectacular. But for the fact that in year 3, when you have a need sitting in front of you, and we've said it before,
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's the lack of faith, I'm going to have to say, by the coaching staff that's not even going to allow you to put him out there, because he can't do any worse than Joshua Zuda. You got rid of Boogie Basham because you're trying to free cap space so you can sign another left tackle, or you could sign a right tackle and move Ellie Moore Fudd over. But you can't. You can't keep doing this. You can't keep. We've said this a million times before. You can't keep cutting and pasting this roster together. You need to build some type of continuity. You need to build something. And if Evan Neal is not in your game plan, get rid of him. Why are you literally gonna hold on to him? Roll him out there. See what he can do. If he flames out, it's going to be no worse than putting Joshua Zuda out there. And then you can maybe do something to get him or get something for him instead of having to continuously wait to see if you're going to find someone in free agency. Are you going to grab a guy coming off an ACL? It's just, it kills me because it's now, to me, it's now just the new Giant way. These are the things that we do as the Giants. It's the Giant way. We just kind of screw up. I mean, that's been our moniker the last 10, 15 years. We're a bunch of fuck ups. Build for the future. Build from within. We've talked about this before. Stop with the free agency. Stop with the trades. Draft properly. Do what the Green Bay Packers and the Baltimore Ravens do. They build through the draft, augment through free agency, get a quarterback, and become a consistent winner. I know that's going to be difficult to talk about. And as always, we've talked about it before. October 28th, if you're in Clifton, New Jersey, Giants Steelers, I'll be at the Shannon Rose Pub in Clifton, New Jersey, live streaming from 7 p.m. through the first half into halftime. We'll see how the second half goes. We may stream the whole thing. If you're going to be in the area in Clifton, stop on by. We got a lot of show regulars stopping out as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be October 28th in Clifton, New Jersey. Shannon Rose Irish Pub. Come on in and say hey. And as always, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to ring that bell because you want to know why. That'll be awesome.